everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Sophie and today's video is going to be me delving into the thriller genre. So before I get into the video, please remember to like it if you enjoy it and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. I post videos every Sunday. So I primarily read fantasy and quite a bit of romance as well, but I've been really wanting to dip my toe into the thriller genre. So I've been doing a bit of research and I have read quite a few thrillers recently, but I'm really wanting to dip my toes in and really explore this genre because what I've read I've really enjoyed so far. So I've got 4 books that I would like to try and read in this reading vlog. I don't really know too much about any of them, so I'll explain as I go along. So first up we have The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. Everyone seems to really love this on BookTube, so I'm really keen to give this one a go. I've then got I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh. Again, I don't really know too much about this one. My mum actually highly recommended this one to me. She said this is one of the best thriller books that she's ever read and she loves this genre. That's all she really reads. I've then got Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. This copy is super beat up from the library. I've read The Prisoner by B.A. Paris quite recently actually. I saw this author featured on Francesca's Books channel and apparently this is B.A. Paris's best book, so I'm really excited to read this one. And then finally I've got Final Girls by Riley Sager. So I've read The Only One Left by Riley Sager and I really enjoyed that one, so I'm keen to go back and read his backlog and I thought I'd start with this one. So yeah, the first one I'm going to read is I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh. So I'll start this one and I'll check back in when I've read a bit. So I've started reading the first book for this vlog, which is I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh. So in this one we're following our main character Jenna, and in the prologue her 5-year-old son is very sadly hit and killed in a hit and run accident with a car, and then we're straight into the investigation and how she's dealing with her grief. So we have 2 perspectives: Jenna as she deals with her grief and tries to not move on but come to terms with what's happened and make a life for herself, and we also follow the police detective, the head of the crime investigation department or something like that, and he's quite high up in the police force and he's running this investigation. So far they've had no resolution to who it was actually hit Jacob and killed him. Been a year since the accident and they've done an anniversary appeal and they've got some new information, so maybe we'll get a resolution. But yeah, so there's the police detective side and there's a whole storyline going on with him, and then Jenna, she can't cope, and obviously because it was such a young boy and she wasn't holding his hand when he crossed the road, he just ran out. Everyone online is saying how bad a mother she is, and she lives in Bristol and she actually just literally just ups and moves and just gets on a coach to Swansea and she just walks and walks and walks till she finds somewhere. She gets rid of her phone so no one can contact her. She doesn't want anything to do with her old life and she's just trying to move on. She can't handle the grief, so obviously the police have lost contact with her, which isn't very good, and it's about how she's making not a new life for herself, but she's just trying to live and comes to terms with what's happened. It's really interesting actually. This book is set in and around Bristol, so the accident happened in, I think it's Fish Ponds. It's the Fish Ponds hit and run, and there's mentions of Clifton and Avon and Somerset Police and Bristol, and I'm actually from this area. I live very close to Bristol, so when they're talking about Fish Ponds and stuff and Clifton, I know where all that is. I don't know the ins and outs. It's not where I'm from. I'm just near to it, but it's really interesting reading about a place that you're near to, so that's really cool. And yeah, it's just really quite a powerful read actually, reading from Jenna's perspective about the guilt that she feels and all of this. And there's obviously some stuff going on with her background because she's very reluctant to open up to people. So there's a vet that she meets who lives in the village that she's currently living in, and he obviously likes her, she likes him back, and she finds it quite difficult to open up to him. So there's definitely more going on to the story than just that. I'm about just over 150 pages in. I'm really enjoying this one. Definitely different to what I was expecting, but yeah, just absolutely incredible so far, and I'm really excited to continue on with this one. I've got just under 100 pages left of I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh. Guys, this book is giving me whiplash. I thought I understood what was going on. So we're following Jenna, who is the mother of the young boy who was killed in the hit and run accident, and then suddenly, well, I'm not going to say what happened because there's a massive plot twist, and everything you think you know, you don't know. You don't know anything what's going on in this book, and it's what? I actually had to go back and reread and double check myself because I was sure this was what was happening, and now I'm questioning myself and everything I think I know, and I'm just have I actually even read this book? Have I been paying attention? But I have, obviously, but I'm just this is absolutely fantastic, and this is her debut book as well. It's absolutely incredible. So yeah, I've got 100 pages left and I'm just what else is she gonna throw my way? There's obviously gonna be another plot twist, but what? Like, this is so good. Like, I'm just like not annoyed at myself, because I'm kind of glad I didn't see what happened coming, because like that's the whole point of reading a thriller. Like, you're along for the ride. If you can guess, it's fun to guess, but like if you can predict everything that's happening, it becomes a bit, not boring, but like I want the author to tell me and surprise me, and like she sure as hell is. Like, yeah, wow. So yeah, I'm gonna go finish the last 100 pages and I'll check back in with you guys probably tomorrow now. But yeah, this is absolutely fantastic so far. Just, yeah. So I finished reading I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh, and I absolutely loved this one. I'm not sure if I'm going to give it a 4.5 or a 5 star. I've given it a 5 star for now. But yeah, this was absolutely incredible. I've already said about, you know, how many twists and turns this book took. And yeah, we had more twists to the tale at the end. And yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm shocked this is her debut, because this was absolutely incredible. So I guess it's only up from here with her. But yeah, really, really glad I read this one. It was absolutely fantastic. I will say there's a lot of hard topics covered, like with most thrillers. So I don't want to say what they are, because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, because at the start we don't know what our main character's going through, kind of thing, in her life. So I don't want to spoil anything in regards to that, but I would definitely check maybe some of the triggers out if that is something that you might be worried about. But yeah, highly recommend this one. Absolutely fantastic. I'm sure I'm late on the train with this one, but yeah, this was absolutely brilliant. So glad I read this, and yeah, loved it. So the next thriller I'm going to pick up for this vlog is going to be The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. So I'll start reading this one and I'll check back in when I've got an update for you guys. So I've not done a very good job in checking in with you guys, but I have started reading The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. I'm about 225 pages into this one. I've only got about 100 pages left. So in this one we're following Carly, and we've also got the past timeline of Viv. So Viv was a 20-year-old girl who started working at the Sundown Motel as the night clerk, and then she went missing in like the 1980s and she was never found. Carly is her niece, so her mum is Viv's sister, and she has had an interest in Viv for like her whole life, because none of her family, they're all quite secretive about the whole thing. So because she's so obsessed with the story, she decides when her mum dies, she's going to move to the town where the Sundown Motel is and find out what happened to her aunt. So we've got the two timelines of Viv in the 1980s before she went missing, and Carly in present day in 35 years later, when she's investigating Viv's disappearance. And there's a few like reoccurring characters, like we've got the police officer that investigated Viv's disappearance and people like that. I do say I am liking it, but it's not really what I was expecting. There's a lot of like paranormal aspects that I'm not loving. It's just not really something that really interests me. I was expecting more of like a sort of thriller. Like, this is interesting. Like, I do want to find out what happened to Viv, and like I think Carly's getting herself into a bit of trouble in Viv's disappearance, because obviously the person who, we don't know if it was a person or persons, but the persons who, you know, whatever happened to Viv, they're still around. Carly is digging up old wounds and things like that, so she's potentially in a lot of trouble as well. So we've got about 100 pages left of this one. I am enjoying it. I think so far it's going to be like a 3.5. I do like the writing style, but I'm just not, I find it very confusing with the two timelines, because I find Viv and Carly, their perspectives are very similar, and sometimes I'm reading one of the chapters and I'm like, oh god, who am I reading, from Carly's point of view or Viv's point of view? Especially because a lot of the characters from 1982 are in the present timeline as well, so it can get quite confusing. But yeah, I am enjoying it, and it shouldn't take me too long to finish this one, and I'll check back in with you guys when I'm done. So I have now finished reading The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. I'm going to give this one 3 stars. I really didn't love this. I found that the two perspectives that we were following, the two different timelines, to be quite confusing, and I'm not sure if it was intentional, but they just felt very samey. And like, I would be reading one of them and I'd sort of be like, I swear we already know this, but we'd actually already worked that out in the previous timeline, so, or like in the other timeline, so we were kind of just repeating a lot of information. Like, the two girls were solving the same mystery at the same time. You know, they were at different stages of the investigation, so like when one person learned something, we learnt it, and then it took ages for the other person to catch up, and it was kind of like, we already know this information. And for me as well, the girls both worked out who the killer was very quickly, and then I was just kind of bored, because it was like they just had to prove to the police that it was them, and I'm just kind of like, it's kind of not as interesting when you know kind of pretty soon into the story who is the bad guy. Like, it's just not really that interesting to read. You're just like trying to prove to the police, and I was just kind of like, I don't really care. So yeah, this is a 3-star for me. I'm a bit disappointed because this one was really, really hyped up. I know a lot of people love this, but maybe it's just not for me. I think I might give her other book, it's called The Book of Cold Cases. I might give that a go and see if she's an author for me or not. But yeah, didn't love this one, unfortunately. So I think the next book I'm going to read for this vlog is going to be Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. I have read The Prisoner by B.A. Paris back in maybe October or November, and I did enjoy that one. I did think it ended quite abruptly, but either way I did enjoy it. So I've heard very good things about particularly this book by this author, so I'm going to give this one a go and I'll let you know what I think when I start reading it. So I'm currently 77% of the way through Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris, and this one's really intriguing me so far. So we're following Jack and Grace, who are a married couple, and we follow 2 timelines. We follow the present and the past, and the past is about how they meet, how they kind of get into this situation that they're currently in, and the present is obviously the situation. So Jack is an abusive husband, but not in the way that we kind of think. So he has no attraction to Grace, and all he wants from her is for her to be fearful of him. So he gets pleasure out of women being afraid of him. So Grace has a sister called Millie who has Down syndrome, and when Millie turns 18, Grace and Jack are supposed to be her carers. So Grace's parents never wanted Millie, and they basically signed all rights over Millie to Grace. So when she turns 18, she's going to be coming out of this like special boarding school and coming to live with them, and that is who Jack really wants. He wants Millie to live in this, like, he calls it like a red, in the basement it's like the red room, and it's painted in red. There's no windows, there's no darkness though. The lights are always on and they're really bright. So he manipulates her in many ways. So they get married and all seems to be going well, and then they get to Thailand on their honeymoon, and he just like completely changes, and this is where it all comes out that basically she's a prisoner. Like, he made her quit her job and he controls all her money and everything, so she is like trapped, and she is literally held prisoner, so she's not allowed to go anywhere without him. So like some friends of theirs invite her out for lunch and she can't go unless he comes with her. Like, he even goes to the toilet with her, and like he's manipulated everyone around him into thinking that Grace has got some like mental problems. So like when she says things like Jack's keeping me prisoner, no one believes her. So she will do anything to protect Millie, she'll do anything for Millie, and he knows this. So he wants her to do a load of paintings for Millie's room, and he's a lawyer and he works on like abused women's cases. He fights for abused women, which is kind of ironic really. And he gets photographs of the women who have been abused and makes Grace paint portraits of them with like the bruises and everything, and he puts them up in this room that he's going to be keeping Millie in. And every now and again he will make Grace stay down in this room so she kind of knows what's at stake. And we've just got to the point where there's like 2 months before Millie is due to come and live with them, and Grace is still, you know, she's 15 months into this marriage, she's stuck, she can't get out, and it's kind of sunk in that Millie is going to be coming and living with them, and she is going to be like, it's just going to be horrendous for her. It's horrendous for Grace, but it's going to be even worse for Millie, because Millie is who Jack really wants to like torture. I don't know, it's like, it's kind of briefly explained that like he sort of derives pleasure from like fear. So like they go to Thailand a lot, because I think it's not like been explicitly said, but I think he like goes places and like beats women up or like strangles them or something. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, I really don't know how Grace is going to get herself out of this. There's a few things that have happened that could potentially lead to her escaping, but I don't know how she's going to do it, because he is always like 5 steps ahead of her. Like when they're on the honeymoon, he makes her sit out on the balcony all day whilst he goes off and does stuff. So in the room next to him there's like a barrier and there's a balcony, and she can hear there's like a couple in the next room, and she waits like a couple of days, and then she goes and knocks on the door when he's out one day and begs them to help. It turns out it's actually just Jack in the next room. Like, he's been playing her this whole time. Like, he loves the fear, and like he loves watching her fail, and like, yeah, like when he puts her in this basement, he just like stands outside and he loves hearing her cry. It's like really, really creepy. It's very different to anything that I've read before, and like it's really, really good. Like, B.A. Paris has written this really, really well, and like the 2 timelines have like kind of synced up quite well, because like there's things that have happened in the past timeline that we've just read that are kind of coming into play in the present, if that kind of makes sense. So like Millie gives Grace something in the past timeline, and then in the next chapter she's like using that thing, if that makes sense. So they're done really well. And yeah, this is just really well written. Like, I just flew through this as well. It's really fast paced. Like, I want to just get this done and finish this tonight because I'm really intrigued as to what's going to happen. I have no idea how this is going to play out, no idea what's going to happen. And yeah, really, really good so far. Loving this one. So I've got a couple of reading updates for you guys. I did finish reading Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. And I'm not really sure what I think of this one because I really enjoyed most of this book. I just found that the ending was quite abrupt and quite unsatisfying in a way that we don't really find out really what happens. We know that Grace is basically being held sort of captive, held as a prisoner by her husband, and there's the threat of Millie being her, sort of keeping her in this way, and then obviously Millie is potentially coming to live in this house, and then a lot of things kind of happen, and then the two timelines, the past and present, kind of catch up with each other, and we're kind of following, I don't really know how to explain it, but like the present day and the past is like just before. So we find out sort of what happens, but I found the ending very abrupt, and I don't want to spoil what happens, but if you've read this book you probably understand what I mean. And that's the thing, I did really like most of it, just the ending. I just wanted maybe a little bit more of this book. So with thriller books, obviously in the end the sort of the good person does eventually triumph, but I almost wanted to see the aftermath of what happened, like, because we sort of, I really can't explain it without spoiling it. But yeah, I just wanted a little bit more. Did our main character, like, get away with it, basically? Like, what happened? Obviously, she is a good person that bad things have happened to, and therefore she almost needs to do bad things to get out of this horrible situation she's in. Does she get away with that? Like, what happens to her? What happens to her after the events of this book? What happens to her after sort of everything ends, you know? Yeah, I've kind of gone on a bit of a rant. I did enjoy it. I think I'm going to give it like a 4 or a 3.5. This is my second book by this author now, so I don't know if this is just her writing style, that her endings are quite abrupt, but yeah, I'm not really loving that. So I think I might give another one of hers a go, and then if that one's the same as well, maybe this author isn't for me. But then I do love the stories. Like, The Prisoner was really good. Like, most of this story was really good. It's literally just the ending, and I think that can kind of like make or break a thriller for me. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one like a 4 or 3.5, like, not sure on this one. And then I know at the very start of this vlog I said I was gonna be reading Final Girl Support Group, but I have actually swapped that out for The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden, because I read this one on my Kindle whilst I've been at work this week. So this one follows two timelines. We follow Sydney in present day and a guy called Tom in the past. Sydney is sort of like 35 years old. She's on all the dating apps. She lives in New York, and she really doesn't have any luck sort of like with relationships. So she meets a guy on a dating app and she meets up with him, and it turns out he's completely different to his picture. He's horrible. His name's Kevin, and at the end of the day she knows not to lead him to her home. So what she does is she walks to a random like apartment building and is like, oh, here I am, like, you can stop walking me home now. And he tries to assault her, and then a guy comes along who's called Mystery Man at the start of this book, and he basically like saves her, and they like hit it off, but they don't exchange numbers or anything. And a couple of months later they meet again when she's on another date that doesn't go very well. She has a like blood, something to do with her blood, like when she cuts herself, like loads of blood gushes out, and she's on a date with a guy in a coffee shop, and she has a nosebleed and there's blood everywhere, and the guy like runs, and that's when they meet again, because he is a doctor, so he is like not really fazed by blood. And Mystery Man and her hit it off, they start dating, he becomes a boyfriend, and obviously prior to them starting to date, so between Kevin attacking her and him dating, her best friend Bonnie is brutally murdered in her apartment. They can't solve the case, like they've got fingerprints all around the apartment of a guy that she was potentially dating, but it turns out the guy was texting her from like a burner phone. No one knew what this guy's name was because Bonnie was quite secretive about him, so no one knows who this guy is, no one is able to track him down, and eventually the case kind of doesn't go cold because it's only like a couple of months later. There's no leads in the case, so I guess it does kind of go cold. So that's present day timeline. And then the past timeline, we're following a guy called Tom, and he falls in love with a girl in high school, and then like basically a string of murders and disappearances happen at the school that it seems that he could potentially be to blame for, and his father is also abusive to his mother, so it kind of sets him up to be the murderer in the past timeline, but we don't really know what happens until the very end. So that's the setup. He's quite a creepy boy, like he's got a creepy friend, and he falls in love with this girl, and yeah, things kind of happen from there. So it kind of got to like 80% of the way through, and I was kind of getting a little bit bored, mainly because I thought I had worked this book out. So I was like, this is really obvious. Like, so Sydney is dating this guy who turns out to be Tom, and she finds out that like he is a doctor, and Bonnie was dating a doctor. He was like 3 blocks away from her apartment building the night that Bonnie was murdered. And then you sort of think like this, even in her head she says like, this could be the guy that murdered Bonnie. She's not the most clever like main character, I have to say, but I will say that the twist in this, like Frida has done it again. I was like, this is so boring, this is gonna be like a 2-star. This was fantastic. Obviously I'm still quite new to the thriller genre, so maybe other more seasoned thriller readers might have guessed this, but I didn't, and I won't spoil anything. I'm not gonna say what's happened, but this was absolutely incredible. She is so good. She tricks you, she sets you up, leaves you a trail of breadcrumbs, and you think you've solved what's going to happen, and then you haven't. Yeah, I really did enjoy this one. This was a very satisfying ending. This was as well quite different to the rest of the books, which I'm quite happy with. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be reading more from Frida McFadden. I think she's definitely solidified herself as like a go-to thriller author for me. Obviously, I am still new to this genre, so I've got a few authors now that I'm happy to basically read their backlist from. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I would highly recommend Frida McFadden. Maybe she's not the best thriller writer. I know she gets a lot of flack because she's releasing a lot of books all at once. However, I think these are just really good quick reads, and I think maybe if you're a more seasoned thriller reader you might not enjoy her, but if you're starting out in the genre I think you'd really enjoy her. I personally find her writing really easy to get into. Like, I was reading this on breaks at work, and I was having to sort of pick it up and put it down after not really reading too much, and I was still quite immersed in the story. So this is definitely one that you don't have to read all in one go. You can literally pick it up, put it down. It's very easy to read, and yeah, I just really enjoy her writing. So I'm going to give this one 4 stars. So that, I definitely think I'm going to give Behind Closed Doors like a 3.5 because I enjoyed this one more. To wrap up this vlog, I first of all read I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh. I gave this one 5 stars, and I'll definitely be reading more from this author. Again, I've only read one of her books, but she's solidified herself as a go-to thriller author for me. Hopefully the rest of her books are as good as this one. I then read The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, and I gave this one like a 3.5. It wasn't really my sort of thriller. It was more ghosty rather than sort of like real life, I guess. I am going to try another one of hers and just see maybe if it was this one, because I did actually quite enjoy the writing style. I didn't enjoy the past and present timelines in this. I found them very confusing, but I did enjoy the writing. And then obviously I read Behind Closed Doors. I gave that one a 3.5. And then finally The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden, which I gave a 4 stars. So that's going to be it for this week's reading vlog. I hope you've enjoyed if you've made it this far. Comment down below, let me know if you've read any of these authors, any of these books. If you have any thriller recommendations for me, I'd love to hear them. Please remember to like this video if you've enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. And I'll see you next week, guys. Bye!